Good morning and welcome to the State Ethics Commission. Today is September 21st and the time is 9:02. A couple of administrative announcements. If you have a cell phone, turn them off. And at the same time, if you need to speak, please just raise your right hand and we can recognize you on the big screen. At this time, we'll have roll call, and please, when you answer to your name, tell us whether or not you are alone, which kind of sounds funny because, you know, I hate to be alone, but if you're alone in the room with anybody. Up, Bert?
Sure. Starting with Commissioner Tobias.
Beverly Tobias, I'm here and I'm alone.
Thank you. Commissioner Gralty.
Ray Gralty is here and I'm alone.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry. Commissioner Hong.
I'm here and alone.
Commissioner McCarthy.
I am here and so alone.
And Commissioner Fong, recognizing you're here.
I'm here next to our executive director.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call on some of the staff. Susan Yoza.
Sorry, I'm here and I'm alone.
I apologize, some of our screens being blocked, so forgive me in advance if I don't see you, but Key Campbell.
I'm here and alone.
Jennifer Yamanuha.
Here and alone, thank you.
Nancy Neufer.
Here and alone.
Catherine Spadaro.
She said here, I'm not alone, I'm here from outside.
Okay, we can hear you, thank you. And I see we have KITV Island News. Are you able to introduce yourself? Okay. Oh, sorry, I missed you, Patrick.
Yeah, I'm here in the office and door is closed and alone.
Thank you very much.
Got everybody?
Got everybody. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we only have one member of the public that's with us today. Since you're meeting with us remotely, if the commission's video conference connection is lost during the meeting, we will recess the meeting and reconvene after our connection is restored. Please check the commission's website on www.ethics-hawaii.gov for information about reconnecting to the meeting if we should be disconnected. If the meeting is continued to a later date or terminated, information about this will be posted on our website. I noticed there's only one individual, actually KITV, that's joining us this morning. First on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for July 20th, 2022. Are there any excuse me, are there any corrections? If not, except for Vice Chair Gralty, who is not present, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of July 20th.
So moved.
Second.
Any member of the public want to talk about the minutes? If not, all in favor? Roll call.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias. Commissioner Tobias.
Aye.
Commissioner Hong.
Aye.
Commissioner Gralty, I'm
Excuse.
Thank you. Commissioner Fong.
Aye. Seeing there's no nays, the motion is carried. Approval of the minutes for August 17, 2022. And all except Commissioners McCarthy and Tobias, who were not present. Any corrections?
No.
Any comments from the public? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We approve the minutes of August 17th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Gualti, second by whom?
Commissioner Hall.
Commissioner Hall, thank you. On any discussion? Not all in favor by roll call?
Commissioner Hong,
Aye.
Commissioner Galti,
Aye.
Commissioner Fong,
Aye.
and recognizing Tobias and McCarthy is excused.
No ayes, therefore the motion's carried. I mean, no nays, rather, motion's carried. Okay, Executive Director's report.
Thank you, Chair. August has been a busy month for us. If you take a look at attachment 1, you can indicate that we, with regards to trainings, we did a Zoom training on August 4th with 59 attendees. On August 18th, we had 188 participants. And that we are, likewise, similarly going to have similar numbers, I think, going into September, because we have a training set for tomorrow and for next week, Thursday as well. With regards to complaints, we saw a noticeable uptick in August. Sorry, I should first start with training statistics. We had 227 people participate in our self-directed online training program. We had 112 attorney of the day inquiries. We had 39 complaints in August, which is noticeably above sort of our norm. 24 gift invitation travel inquiries, 2 guidances for a total of 67 new matters. Similarly, we wind up closing 19 complaints, issued guidance on 22 gifts, invitations, and travel for a total of 44 matters closed in the month of August. Also, we did have an slight increase in the number of anti-fraud complaints, total of 8. Many of the anti-fraud matters, if they're not passed on to the AG's office or to another administrative agency, may then get turned into one of our complaints that we would then process like a normal complaint on our end, depending on the jurisdiction. I think that is all, unless there's any questions with regards to the executive director's report.
Commissioners, any questions? Any questions from the public? Okay, if not, thank you. Moving on. Believe we have update on commission to improve standards of conduct and special commission.
Sure. Just for the public, the Commission on Improving Standards of Conduct was a commission created by the House with the directive with a fairly broad jurisdiction to make recommendations to improve standards of conduct generally. There was a request to issue an interim report before the legislature closed last year, and a request to issue a more comprehensive report before the start of the next legislative session. The Standards Commission has been meeting every 2 weeks until very recently. We've taken a break for the month of September, largely to start working on bills and guidance, with the idea that we're going to be meeting every week in October to review draft bills and different proposals. At next Ethics Commission meeting, I would hope to bring some of those draft bills for your consideration, input, and guidance on that we're working on, and we will probably be submitting to the Standards Commission sort of concurrently, with the idea of just trying to cast a wide net and get as much input as possible. We're also working with the House majority staff to help work through the legislative guide drafting process to try to make sure it's drafted in a way that won't have concerns if submitted to the legislature for introduction. One of the concepts that I know this commission had questions about last month was with regard to conflicts of interest, specifically legislative conflicts of interest. There have been a number of concerns represented by the public that legislators are able to indicate that they may have a possible conflict of interest, and it seems like it's similarly dismissed or found to not be a conflict, even though I think a reasonable standard would at least raise some more questions. One of the proposals that we have been working on is to really tighten the language within the legislative rules for both the House and Senate, and sort of let them retain jurisdiction over this issue, but in those rules, be very specific that recusal would be the default option, not simply in a vote, but in any discussion of a matter where an individual may have a conflict of interest. In addition, to the extent that there is a need, in sort of narrow circumstances where maybe they need to have the person vote, or if there is a legitimate question of whether or not there is a conflict of interest, it would require a full vote by the governing body. So whether it's a committee or the floor, they would have to address it at that time. So there'd be public notice, public exposure to what the issues are, and a vote on whether or not that person's allowed to proceed involvement in the matter. One of the things that we've been trying to wrestle with, one of the public testifiers was a former attorney general, and she indicated that there was a circumstance where she had invited one of the senators, who then proceeded to vote on her confirmation. And classically under conflict of interest, we'd only really look at financial conflicts of interest, and there's sort of a question whether or not there was a appearance issue there where there's a way to cast the conflict of interest language a bit broader to capture that type of circumstance. And it's still something that we're trying to wrestle with. Let me pause there, see if there's any comments or questions more broadly on the Standards Commission or more specifically to this issue.
Thank you, Robert. I think for those of you who are not familiar with the history of this particular issue, I'm going to ask Robert to explain very briefly. We start with Act number 119, which evolved to Act number 29, and how we got to this point where we're concerned about the conflicts of interest, especially with our legislature. You want to read this, or you want to just read it here?
I can. So this is a follow-up to a question that Commissioner Gralty had asked, and this is prepared by Susan Yoza. And actually, I might
Just read it.
pause. Yeah, well, Susan, would you want to read it by any chance? I can do it as well. Up to you.
Either way is fine.
Since you drafted the email, why don't I let you go ahead and
Okay, Susan, will you do the honors?
Of course.
Drafted
Let me summarize it then for you. So in
Right.
2019, the legislature passed a bill. It was House Bill 170, and it was signed into law by Governor Ige and became Act 119. Effective June of 2019. That bill did a number of things, but among them was that it required legislators to publicly disclose potential conflicts of interest. The other thing that Act 119 did is that it gave our commission rulemaking authority for the disclosure of potential conflicts by legislators. So Act 119 went into law, and a few months after that, our former executive director, Dan Gluck, sent a draft administrative rule to the House Speaker and Senate President for their review and any feedback they wanted to make to us regarding that rule. That rule required legislators to disclose potential conflicts when matters were first publicly discussed at the legislature. So for example, if a legislator had a conflict with regard to a particular bill, when that bill was set for its first committee hearing, the legislator would have been required to disclose the potential conflict at that time. Our rule also required these types of disclosures to be reflected in committee reports, Senate and House journals, any minutes for meetings at which that conflict was raised. So Dan Gluck asked the president and speaker for their feedback, and we waited but did not receive any response from them. And then what happened was that in January of 2020, we were informed by the president and speaker that they wanted to repeal the provision in the law that gave the commission rulemaking authority with regard to the disclosure of conflicts by legislators. This led to another bill being introduced in 2020. This was House Bill 1673. The legislature passed it and it was signed by the governor and became Act 29. So this was in September of 2020. That new law kept the commission's authority to promulgate rules for the disclosure of conflicts, but it also gave rulemaking authority to the House and Senate for the disclosure of conflicts by legislators. And perhaps more significantly, what the new law did was it provided that any rules issued by our commission with regard to the disclosure of conflicts by legislators would be preempted by the Senate and House rules that they adopted for themselves with regard to the disclosure of conflicts. So that was the bill that Vice Chair Gralti had recalled, and that's what happened.
Thank you. Can I add something to what Susan has just narrated?
Commissioner Gralti, yes, let me
Thank you.
recognize you. Before you do
You know-
that, just to make sure, I'm sorry. Commissioner
Go ahead.
Gralti. Just to make sure you understand, after Act 29, if there's a conflict of a rule that we made and there's a rule that it was established by the legislature, they preempt us. So it sounds like they're gonna take care of whatever conflicts by themselves. So that was the issue that was brought up by Commissioner Gralti. So
Yes. The law that was passed was emasculated by that recent new law. But let me just talk from experience. To me, having served 4 years under Henry Peters as Speaker of the House, it was not that the legislators were not disclosing conflicts of interest. The legislators were. The problem was every single time a legislator stood up on the floor and said, Mr. Speaker, I have a conflict, the ruling was the same. You could almost guess that it would be, there is no conflict. So it made a mockery of the conflicts of interest provision or rules or principles. And then when I was in the Senate, I was part of the power block, being judiciary chair. Same thing. Doesn't matter what the conflict is, no matter how blatant. The ruling is always there's no conflict. So as a result, there is no conflict of interest provision. There is no rule. It's up to the chairs of both houses, and they never rule that there's a conflict. So where does that put the public? Where does that put honesty in government? It puts it in the toilet. And unless this provision is resurrected, I think it's too big of an issue for this commission to take up. It needs the power of the commission on the upgrading the standards of conduct to take it up and say, this is important, this has to change. Right now, if we leave it up to the leaders of both houses, we're back in the same boat, which is what they wanted. They really don't want this provision. That's why they preempted the Ethics Commission. So to me, unless the Standards of Conduct Commission really takes it up, there's going to be no progress on it. It's too big of an issue. The legislature pitted against the Ethics Commission, we lose every single time.
thank you.
That-
What I'm gonna do is, first of all, ask if there are any questions of the commissioner, and if there are any questions from the public. Any questions so far? Everybody understand the issue?
Yeah, I understand it.
Yes, Commissioner McCarthy.
Yeah, Ray. So basically what you're telling us with respect to this issue is that we probably will be spinning our wheels to really make any substantive recommendations dealing with conflict of interest. You hate to do things that are going to be simply ignored as they have been. So where are we?
My only, unfortunately, that's the case, Harry. My only recommendation to this commission is that we refer it to the standards of Commission on Upgrading the Standards of Conduct. And we
Yeah.
see what they might do, because I think they have a lot more power at this point because of what's happened with the two legislators being arrested and sent to prison
Yes.
than we do. And I think that's the only way we're going to change things. And I think things have to change. I think this is very important.
Yeah. Let me ask this follow-up question, maybe not for you, Ray, but for Robert. I know that the deadline for the commissions on standards is, I think, in December sometime. But there have been suggestions that there be drafts, proposals submitted by various agencies such as the
So far, it looks pretty
prosecuting
good.
attorney's office.
All right,
in
back
Honolulu.
engaged. I've seen them cheering their hearts out. They're all sweaty after cheer practice. And I think
One second. Who's that?
What happened?
Patrick, is it possible to mute?
She did.
Thank you.
He's muted.
Okay, I guess my question is, maybe it's too early, I don't know. The final report's in December, but have there been any type of proposals submitted by any of these law enforcement agencies or state agencies dealing with such issues as conflict of interest and other suggestions about how to improve the state corruption laws? I guess it's a question, has anything been submitted so far that can be, that's being reviewed? Or do you know? Robert?
Sorry, Robert, I mean, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner McCarthy, for the question. So there have been several concepts in the form of draft bills that have been brought before the Standards Commission already. I'd like to recognize Key, for example, in having drafted the nepotism bill, which we briefly looked at last month. That's been submitted to the Standards Commission. It's sort of in the revision process right now. Jennifer Yamanuha has drafted a proposed revision to both the House and Senate rules on conflicts of interest specifically. And that was what I was discussing earlier, which is our proposal currently, which the Standards Commission has not yet taken up, but would take up in October. And we would probably be coming back to this commission sharing where that's going, is to make recusal the default for any conflict or potential conflict, and creating a mechanism where if there is a question about the conflict of interest, is there a conflict of interest? Or secondly, where so many legislators are potentially conflicted out, they still need the votes. There's a process to consider that through requiring a vote by the full body. So it can't be a decision made simply by a chair or the speaker or the Senate president. It would have to be something that be public, recorded, and there'd be some level of disclosure of what the conflict is and why they're voting. That is the current concept, and there's certain opportunity here to have discussion. I do want to point out that there's probably a legitimate conversation about who has jurisdiction over this, whether it is the Ethics Commission or whether it is the legislature. And it's probably a deeper conversation. Obviously, the legislature maintains it is their jurisdiction. And we sort of are operating in that discussion whether or not we're proposing a statute that directs this wholly to us, or whether or not we are proposing rule revisions to the legislature, recognizing one of the concerns would be is it's easy to adopt rules one year that are tough and then to water them down later when the public's no longer looking.
Thank you, Robert. Actually, before I call on Commissioner Tobias, does everybody understand what's being discussed and proposed by our executive director and our staff? The bottom line, if I can understand it before I ask Commissioner Tobias what questions she has, it's basically right now I understand it's what Commissioner Gralty says. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ray. Actually, what the legislature wants to do is just self-police themselves, what it amounts to, and no outside influence or pressures, I should say. And I guess from what Robert is saying is that they're proposing that, hey, it's going to be an automatic. If you have a conflict, you better speak up, and there's a default in that. Is that correct? Pretty much it?
That's what we are proposing.
Okay.
That they would have, the default would be recusal as sort of the standard response, and that the mechanism would be a bit more onerous to decide whether or not you have a conflict or whether or not there may be a unique circumstance where that vote is still required. One of the concerns a legislator brought So they feared if recusal was too easy for conflicts of interest, legislators would use that as a means to get around difficult votes or politically sensitive votes. So I think there has to be a recognition of a process to still allow folks to vote. However, trying to make it as public, transparent, and, you know, I'd even go so far as maybe a bit onerous to make it something that's not something frequently used.
Thank you. Commissioner Tobias, sorry, go ahead.
No problem. One of the things that I would like to know, is there any other means or mechanism where if there is a conflict of interest, it's in the notes, it's in the minutes, it's in some other vehicle that the public would be made aware of? And if so, would that be enough to deter them from just putting a stop to acknowledging any conflicts?
Yeah, I think that's plainly the intent of what we are trying to propose, which would be a notification that a senator or representative is conflicted and recused from any discussion, participation, behind the scenes involvement, and voting on that matter.
But where would that be? Would that be in their minutes? Would that be a floor discussion that's not recorded, similar to when we go into executive session?
So the intent would be before the body considering the bill. So it'd have to be a notification if that bill is being heard, that is being noted that a certain individual has a conflict and has recused themselves from all consideration.
Thank you. I will entertain any questions you may have, any comments. Then I'm going to ask the commissioners, what kind of action, if any, do you have, or do you want us to take? Commissioner Gralty, I want to ask if Commissioner Hong has any questions before I recognize you. Any questions, Commissioner Hong?
No, I think that this is a critical issue to address. You cannot have the both manage the chicken coop.
Okay, Commissioner Gralty?
I'm cognizant of the constitutional issues involving trying to tell the legislature how and when to do their business. So I think taking the power away from the chairs, and the reason they're in their positions is political. Everybody who supported them is going to support whatever the chair recommends. But I think turning the decision over to the body is a step forward, because it takes the power away from the people who, in my opinion, disregard conflicts of interest, to the detriment of the legislature and the sense of fairness and honesty that we want our legislature to have. So to me, there's a lot of room for discussion, but it needs to be addressed, and it has to be addressed differently than the way the two leaders of the two bodies of the legislature have suggested. In terms of what we do, for me, it's sufficient that we refer it to the Commission on Upgrading the Standards of Conduct, and we let them help sort through the issues. But I think it's very important that there not be any conflicts of interest when legislators put something to a vote. Otherwise, what's the sense? It's all corruption.
Anybody else, any other commissioners? So what is your recommendation, Commissioner Gralty? Is that, well, let me ask you this question first. Are the commissioners satisfied with the explanation given by Robert as to what was going to be proposed by our, I guess, commission to the Commission to Improve Standards of Conduct? Is this what we want to be presented to them? And do you want to endorse it, or just leave it up to the executive director to present it and wait to see what happens? Or do you want to see the draft before it goes? Do we have time for that? We do, don't we?
Sorry, no, I think it'd probably be easier that the two commissions are seeing it concurrently. Basically, it'd be ready to be seen in October at our next commission meeting, and I think the Standards Commission would also have to see it in October.
So is your recommendation that we take a look at it, see if it's okay to endorse it to the Commission to Improve Standards of Conduct? We have time?
I think there will be opportunity for this commission to give any input to any revisions, any suggestions it wants to it. I think the Standards Commission will be doing the same thing at the same time.
So you just give it to us.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner
My
Gauzy.
concern is that time is short. And I think we need to be able to simply say, we endorse this and we let the commission deal with it as best as they can. On the other hand, let me say this. There is no better time to bring this issue up than now, because the reason why we're here is because of the two legislators who committed blatant acts of corruption. We may never have this opportunity again. And in giving it to the commission on the upgrading the standards, to me, I have trust and I support what the commission is doing, and we leave it to them. And I guess they'll come back to everybody that's got a stake in the issue and say, well, what do you think? And of course, I think we'll all be testifying at the legislature, all these stakeholders. So there will be ample opportunity for comment and recommendations for revisions, etc. I'm just concerned about the shortness of time, and we cannot miss the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I'm going down the line. Commissioner McCarthy, any comments?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Ray's statement about that. I wonder if at our next meeting in October, maybe if we could receive anything in advance that outlines the standards that the commission is proposing through after the input of the various stakeholders. And if we're able to do that, then that might be the opportunity that we're going to have that will be the best opportunity. I think that we've got this this organization now that's been formed, and I think it's our best hope of really getting something substantive done that addresses these issues, which are so important. So I think at the next meeting, at the very latest, we should have something that we can look at and decide, yes, these are all good, we're behind it, and put our weight behind it. I think sometimes maybe, I shouldn't speak for others, but sometimes I get the feeling that the commission has a lot of clout that really is not being used properly. And that here's a chance with this commission to put our input in there in a very significant way and endorse their proposals.
Thank you. Let me ask Robert. Robert, can you comply with the recommendation by Commissioner McCarthy? So we have all that information by the next meeting.
We will have a good percentage of the bills being considered by the Standards Commission should be available for you to take a look at by the next meeting. Obviously, my priority and the staff's priority here will be looking at the ethics issues, and those are probably the ones that we will be most actively soliciting your input on. But we can certainly share all of the other bill concepts and proposals that are being proposed, such as campaign spending, criminal, etc., that are in at that date. The intent for the Standards Commission is to spend every week in October considering draft bills and concepts that the various stakeholders are working on. So a number of those should be available. I can't say it'll be 100% because my guess is some of that will slip into November, but again, plainly, you'll get a good chunk of it in October, and you'll probably see some more in November.
Thank you, Robert. My concern is we are directing our attention really to this conflicts of interest issue. So can we, now I don't know about sunshine law, but can we be sent as commissioners a draft of what you are proposing or the staff is proposing in regards to the conflict of interest as you outlined for us this morning?
So we will be submitting it. We can do so, but we do so publicly. So we'd be sharing it with everybody at the same time. So it'd be something to be available for the public at the same time.
Well, can it be available to us before it's to the public so you can receive our comments and in regards to that proposal?
Under the sunshine law, this would have to be a public discussion.
Okay, answers my question. You heard what he said. We got to deal on with the public, so we'll see along with the public, and if we have any input, we'll tell or convey that concern to our staff. Let's see, Commissioner Tobias, what do you think?
I think that there are a couple of issues for me. Number one, Commissioner Gralty made mention of the fact that these are powerful folks? And do they really want to change their behavior? What's the incentive for them to now return that and say, yeah, there's a conflict of interest and I do this? That's number one. Number two is looking at how are we going to enact it if they don't do it? What are the consequences of not going along with the recommendation? And I think a lot of times we can say stuff, but if it has no teeth or it doesn't make a bit of difference to what they're currently doing, then how does that change behavior? And I guess that's my thing. I also will go right along with, as Commissioner Gralty and Commissioner McCarthy had said, I would go along with the recommendation of the committee as they submit that. I think it should come before them, the two leaders of the House and Senate, but I really wonder about the first two issues.
Thank you. Commissioner Hong, any comments, any questions? None. Okay, so what is the pleasure? I understand, or maybe I'm assumed that the pleasure of the commission is to allow our staff, our commission staff, to propose this, I guess, recommendation in regards to the conflicts of interest, and that we review it at the same time as the public and put our input in regards to that particular proposal. Is that what I understand, Robert?
Yes, and it would be concurrently being discussed by both the Standards Commission and the Ethics Commission at the same time.
And if we have any comments in regards or revisions, proposed revisions, do we give it to you just like any member of the public?
Correct. I mean, I am obviously I sit on the Standards Commission in my individual capacity, but it's obviously as a result of being employed by the Ethics Commission. I'm being very careful not necessarily to get ahead of my skis here, getting far ahead of what the Ethics Commission would want. That's why we've, for example, a couple months ago did a presentation on a number of these different concepts with the idea of trying to get input. And this was one of the ones that we previewed. So now we're more, I think, in the drafting stages. And obviously any input on the draft is going to be welcome. And I think the Standards Commission would gladly take anything the Ethics Commission says or recommends. I don't really see a lot of.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Again, I think we're somewhat in lockstep. I guess what I'm trying to get at.
Excuse me, I'm having a little trouble hearing Robert's.
Okay, before I recognize you, Commissioner Gralty, isn't this proposal really coming from? Well, is this proposal coming from you as a member of that special commission, or is this proposal coming from the commission? And if it is, then don't we have a right to look at it, or should we not look at it before we submit it as a commission?
This is coming from me in my individual capacity. I share Commissioner Gralty's concern that if we have to run every concept through the Ethics Commission, which is generally speaking going to be a 1-month process waiting between agendas, and then wait for the next Standards Commission, we start running out of time. And so this is coming from me. However, we have shared almost the entirety of the concepts with you already in a PowerPoint presentation, I believe in June. I'd have to go back to look at the exact date. And we will gladly share all the drafts, as in real time to get input, because I think the intent here is to get the best concepts possible, with the idea that there will be a final report from the Standards Commission. We'll have that blessing of, I will use the term, blue ribbon committee endorsing it with a fair amount of public and media attention on it, and that there will be some level of pressure for the legislature to consider those ideas and move forward with them. And so, again, if there's general input here now, gladly take it, and that can be incorporated into the drafting. If not, you'll see the actual draft and the wordsmithing. There's an open door here, I guess I'm trying to get at. I don't think there's going to be a lot of resistance to input there.
Okay, going back to my question before I recognize the other commissioners, does that mean is there an opportunity for us as a commissioners, not commission, to review that draft before you submit it to the Blue Ribbon Commission?
Again, under the Sunshine Law, I don't believe that you can have that discussion. And
Well, no, I'm not talking about discussion, just to look at it as an individual. And I'm gonna put the caveat without discussion.
We can take a look at it. I believe, though, it would be under the Uniform Information Product UIPA Act, Practice Act. Thank you. It would be a public document at that stage. And again, I don't think anything we're doing is secretive, so I have no concern necessarily with it being public. I just want to caution as we're sharing stuff, those drafts potentially are now stuff that we have to share with the public as well.
Can I get a copy? Let me be more specific. Can I get a copy of that draft and look at it without discussing it with my fellow commissioners before it's submitted to the Blue Ribbon Commission?
I have no concern with sharing it with all commissioners before sharing it with the Standards Commission. I think in the act of doing so, it is now a public document.
Okay. Comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Commissioner Garaldi.
I think it's very wise that the commission discuss the matter that is right now a suggestion coming from our executive director. But once there is a discussion, and as I understand it, because of sunshine rules, we cannot take a vote. Once there is a discussion, it becomes the commission's recommendation somehow. And also the public will be allowed to participate. Common Cause, Civil Beat, all the people that have come before us, League of Women Voters, that makes us all the more powerful with the recommendation. So I wouldn't put a stop to it. I would say that's welcome. The more the merrier, the more the stronger. And I agree with Bev that there is no guarantee that this thing is going to, it may mean nothing at all. But there is an opportunity that presents itself that we ought to take advantage of. Harry said we haven't used our power the way that we're supposed to. Well, sometimes you get your head bit off. Look what happened on the gifts. They bludgeoned us into submission because they didn't like it. But then the two legislators got elected and they all shut up. So we do have power. We might not state it, but they are concerned about what we might say and what the commission might do. And I say we go forward as best as we can under the time constraints that we're working under and hope that there will be some resolution. I am confident that there will be, because number one, it's the right thing. Number two, we are powerful. Number three, we have friends. I mean, Common Cause, League of Women Voters, all the people that have been testifying before us all this time on various and sundry matters, I think will be readily supportive of making the legislature conduct its business more fairly and more honestly.
So Commissioner Garaldi, you have no problem with looking at that draft. And even though the public can look at the same draft so we can get input, so rather than just wait until it's already in the hands of the Blue Ribbon Commission?
I have no problem.
Right.
It's not ideal, but under the circumstances, we better get in the door before they close it.
Thank you. I'm going to go down the line. Commissioner McCarthy, any comments on that? That's
So I don't have any comments. I totally support the idea of making a submission, reviewing what we can in the next meeting, and then making any comment or submission to the commission. So I would support that totally.
I clarify, I mean, one thing I can do is not share this with the Standards Commission in October and give you a chance to review the draft and give all your input on it in October, and then try to share it with the Standards Commission in November. It just means it'd be a late issue for the Standards Commission to consider. But it gives you an opportunity to review it, and if there's concern that it's not strong enough or tight enough, you have the opportunity to give that input. And I'm totally fine with that process. I'll just tell the Standards Commission we're holding on to this one for further discussion.
Rob, I'm not so much concerned about the prior review. I'm more concerned about the door closing.
I share your concern, and that's part of the reason why I'm asking for sort of concurrent discussion. League of Women Voters, Common Cause both have seats on the Standards Commission. It is a commission, that I think shares all of your concerns. I don't think there's going to be necessarily voices trying to water down the conflicts of interest proposal.
Good.
Commissioner Tobias? Yep, Commissioner Tobias, your thoughts?
I agree with Commissioner Gralty, and I would just really like to get in there, get it done, because if there is advance notice to some of these folks, I think they'll begin their discussion and arguments on how to water it down. Once it comes from the commission with our input, it's done.
Do you want to see it before it goes to the commission, the Blue Ribbon Commission?
I can, yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Hall?
While I would like to see it before it goes to the commission, I will not be attending next October's meeting, so I think my comments will be limited.
But all the commissioners agree with that? We want to see it before it goes to the Blue Ribbon Commission? So we
Yes.
can review it and put in our input, since we are the State Ethics Commission, quote unquote.
With the
Any
understanding
objections to
that
that?
time is of the essence.
And time is of the essence, so they can give it to us as quickly as possible, even before the October meetings.
We may have a special meeting.
Oh, could do that too. You gonna join me down here?
I will, if that's what it takes.
Okay,
And I'll pick up your book.
I'm not taking you out to lunch, I'm sorry. Any thoughts on that, and any objections to the way it was proposed, that we go and see the draft? Even if we have to have a special meeting, we can go and put our input in before it gets to the Blue Ribbon Commission? Commissioners,
May I suggest a vote?
all right, I'll entertain a motion, Commissioner Zalti.
So moved.
Second,
What do you want to move?
What do we,
That we have, that we submit this to the commission on standards, upgrading standards of conduct, provided that we have an opportunity to look, see before they submit it.
Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner Tobias. Any discussion? Roll call.
Oh, apologies, sorry. I was writing down the motion. Apologies. Commissioner McCarthy,
aye,
Commissioner Tobias,
Aye.
Commissioner Gralty,
Aye.
Commissioner Hong,
Aye.
Commissioner Font.
Aye. No objections, motions carried. Thank you very much. Anything else on there?
So just commission and trying to execute that, we will look at scheduling on whether or not there is time with the Standards Commission to try to stay within our normal meeting agenda. If it looks like it's going to be difficult, then we may be proposing a special meeting for this purpose. And I think if we are going to do a special meeting, we'd probably put together all of the Ethics Commission's concepts for you to review at that time, rather than just limit it to this.
Thank you.
Other concepts include, for example, a required education for lobbyists, a mandatory education requirement, trying to require a reciprocity in the gifts rules, gift regulations between lobbyists and state employees. So lobbyists would similarly be regulated, as well as other kind of concepts. I think the idea would probably try to bring all of these for you before giving them to the Standards Commission for review.
Thank you. Anybody object to that? Just one comment from the chair, although I don't have to relinquish I believe that what we're doing is very important, because in my many years of being on the commission, we never had this opportunity to have the first bite of the ethics apple for the whole state. And I'm just talking about the state now, and maybe the counties will follow through. So I think I do agree with what was proposed, and I hope it does go through. And I thank Robert for his presentation and the staff for drafting this proposal on conflicts. I think it's been a thorn in a lot of on the side of a lot of individuals, especially about our legislators. And I'm not chastising our legislators, but at least it'll give them a direction and input from us to be open and
Honest.
transparent. Thank you. Any other comments? If not, I'm going to move on to item number 5, consideration of collection efforts for candidates who failed to file disclosure statements. Robert?
Thank you, commissioners. This is a bit of a broad topic, just giving you the specifics before we get into what the question is. Candidates under the state ethics code are required to file a disclosure statement. And the statute indicates that if they do not file in time, we must issue a $50 fine and publish the list of candidates' names on our website, which we did so. 30 fines in total were issued. To date, 18 have paid, and we've granted 1 waiver for that candidate, which leaves 11 unpaid. And in addition, 6 candidates have still not filed a disclosure statement. 1 of those is still in the running. There are a total 11 unpaid, as I indicated earlier. 5 of those are still running in the general. We have issued 2 letters to these candidates, and there have been some phone calls. I think we should still continue on the collection effort of at least issuing 1 more letter and probably doing phone calls each of the remaining 11 who have not paid and the 6 who have not filed disclosure statements. I do note that our governing statute indicates that these fines shall be collected by the Ethics Commission and deposited in the general fund. And so it brings up a discussion point of how far do we go in the collection efforts? Do we go to the point of issuing orders and sending to the AG's office for collection? And I do think it's a policy matter that this commission has to decide. My recommendation, for whatever it's worth, is that we are talking about a $50 fine, and I'm a little bit concerned about spending hundreds of dollars of state resources to chase after a $50 fine. And I would suggest us publicizing it on our website, continuing to make efforts to collect, is probably sufficient at this time. But again, I think this is a policy call for the commission to decide where to go with this.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
You've heard the recommendation of our executive director. Questions?
Yeah. I think,
Mr. Baldi?
especially the person who's still running, I think publicity will really force that person to comply. And I think putting it on our website is a first step. We might need the help of KITV News or one of those other media outlets. For those who are not running or have been already closed their campaigns, it's a real dilemma for us because we don't want to spend a lot of money trying to collect $50. Can we not just refer to the AG for collection, or do we have to do the collection ourselves? Rob?
So Commissioner Gualti, I think we'd probably have to go through a further process to issue an order on our side, which would mean some type of motion or public process, and give the other person an opportunity to respond. Once we have that order, yes, we can give it to the AG's office, and they have indicated if we ask them to, they will do collection effort. My understanding, and this bears some level of confirmation, my understanding from my conversation with them, they actually have to issue a bench warrant for that person's arrest.
Wonderful.
In order to do the collection. Again, I think this is a policy call, and I understand, for example, the Campaign Spending Commission will do some of this. I do think it's a policy call. I also, think that there's potentially a good public response also of, why are you spending so much time chasing after this?
Commissioner McCarthy.
Yeah, I think I know the answer to this, but maybe I don't. Instead of spending a lot of money, I wonder whether members of the staff here could simply place a call, if it has not done already, to the one who's running and say, look, you've got an obligation to do this under the law, and we want to give you that opportunity to do this. And there's one final thing. Has that sort of thing been done as kind of a
I want to be really
informal
clear.
enforcement? Excuse me?
No, sorry, Commissioner. I want to be very clear. We need to do more. We sent 2 letters. I want to make sure we've done a phone call to each of the remaining 11, and probably send at least 1 more letter. I want to be clear we're going to do that. I think the question is, assuming we've done that, what's the next step? Just recognizing another month.
Yeah, I think after that, if there's no response, especially the one who's running for office right now, but the list, simply to publish it in the Star Advertiser, get a good column there to do that, and just for the shaming of it, of people running for office not complying with the law.
We can certainly do a press release, which is what we did last time when we posted it to our website. Basically just doing an update of here's who has not paid, and we
Yeah.
can certainly do that as well.
Okay.
I guess the question too is, all right, we've done all this and they still don't pay. Do we just refer it to the Attorney General's office and let them figure out what they want to do? They want to spend the money to go and chase $50, but isn't that their call rather than our call? Is that correct?
They've been very clear that they will do it if we ask. So I think they have tried to put the call back on us.
Well, okay, so we can do that unless there's any objection to referring it to the AG's office. And being with the AG's office, I may not be thrilled, but if you tell me to do it, I gotta do it. Shall is the word, okay? So Commissioner Tobias, any comments?
I just really wonder if they're not complying with something so basic, what are they going to do when they actually, if they win, get into the office? You know, I agree. Send it to the AG.
After we have done our part in getting the order. Am I to understand it? I'm sorry to
That's
butt it
correct.
in, but I wanted to make sure I'm clear.
Commissioner Hong?
Yeah, I concur with Mr. Harris. I think the AG's office may be a bit overkill. I do think that there has to be a listing somewhere. The public statement getting to the media would be the first step. And then possibly referring it to the House or Senate's Ethics Committee, which has been supposed to be doing oversight if they get elected. I think that would be much more valuable than having the AG's office chase down $50 with a bench warrant.
I can't forecast whether or not the one person remaining in running is going to get elected or not, but I think a majority of the folks who did not file, I would categorize as grassroots candidates who may be less familiar with this process. So, take that as what it's worth. My guess is there won't be very many, if any, people elected who have not gone through this process.
So this would be a wake-up call for them in a sense. Do we need a motion? So the way it is that we follow our procedures that we have been following before, and if they don't pay out, then we send it to the AG's office. Is that my understanding? Let me ask the commissioners, is that my understanding? Is that what you want to do? Follow the procedure? They don't pay up?
Yeah.
And then also with the notoriety and being published, and then go to the AG's office? Is that what my understanding? Any objections to that?
No objections.
I think that it's overkill to send it to the AG's office for $50. I think that you should publish it. You should, shame them people, but you're not, we likely will face a backlash of spending thousands of dollars to get a $50 fine paid.
Point well taken. Since there's a little conflict over here, I'll entertain a motion that we proceed with the procedure that was outlined by our executive director in regards to publication and all the way up to the AG's office for collection. I'll entertain a motion, and if there's no motion, then we'll just have to leave it as it is. Yes.
I'll move. I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by a move by Commissioner Gralty, seconded by Commissioner McCarthy. Discussion. Okay. Vote. Roll call.
Sure. Commissioner McCarthy.
Aye.
Commissioner Tobias.
Commissioner Tobias?
Aye, sorry.
Commissioner Hong.
Nay.
Commissioner Gralty.
Aye.
Commissioner Fong.
Aye. The ayes have it, the motion's carried. Just one comment, I hope that we don't have to send it to the AG's office. How's that? Being former deputy attorney general, we got better things to do, but it says shall, we will, as they say. Thank you very much. Anything else, Robert?
No, that's all.
Any comments from any of the commissioners? How about the staff? Anything? If not, it is,
Wait, you have the.
We have one more.
oh, we have one more. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. How can I forget this? Our favorite, go ahead, our favorite case.
So there is no update in the Akana versus Hawaii State Ethics Commission Daniel's Luck matter. So it is something we can skip through quickly, unless there's any questions.
Any questions about our
No.
favorite case? None? If not, I entertain, it is 10:03. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
I don't know who moved.
Okay, I'll second his.
I'm sorry, who moved?
Commissioner McCarthy.
Harry,
I moved.
Commissioner McCarthy. I moved and Commissioner Tobias second. All in favor? Do I have to roll call? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. No nays. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.